The morning sun hadn't even cleared the ridge when I heard the shouting. I was sitting outside my tent, nursing a cup of coffee and watching the mist rise off the valley below. I'd been camping on this beautiful piece of land for 3 days now, and it had been absolute paradise. The property belonged to old Mr. Henderson, who'd given me verbal permission to camp here whenever I wanted. He was a friend of my grandfather's, and when I told him I needed some time away from the city to clear my head after a brutal work project, he'd practically insisted. Marcus. The voice was shrill, cutting through the peaceful morning like a chainsaw through silk. I turned to see a woman in her 50s marching toward me, her blonde bob bouncing with each aggressive step. She wore a pristine white polo shirt, khaki capris, and the kind of expression that suggested she'd been personally victimized by my existence. "Can I help you?" I called out, setting down my coffee. She stopped about 10 feet away, hands on her hips, and I could see a laminated badge hanging from a lanyard around her neck. "I'm Patricia Whitmore, president of the Ridgeview Estates Homeowners Association. And you, sir, are trespassing." I blinked. "I have permission from the landowner to be here." "Permission?" She let out a laugh that sounded like a car refusing to start. "This land borders our HOA community, and we have very strict regulations about vagrants camping near our property values." "Vagrants." I stood up slowly, trying to keep my cool. "Ma'am, I'm not a vagrant. I'm camping with the owner's permission." Patricia's face flushed red. "I don't care if you have a golden ticket from Willy Wonka himself. Your presence here is unacceptable. Our residents have complained about smoke from your campfire, about the unsightly tent visible from some of our premium lots, and about the general atmosphere of homelessness you're creating." The insult hit me harder than I expected. I'd worked my tail off to become a successful software developer, had just sold my startup for enough money to retire at 35, and here was this woman calling me homeless. "Look," I said, keeping my voice level, "I understand your concern, but I'm on private property, not HOA land. I'm not breaking any laws." "You're breaking the laws of common decency." Patricia shrieked. "Do you know what property values in Ridgeview Estates are? Do you know how hard we've worked to maintain our community standards? And then people like you come along, thinking you can just rough it like some kind of mountain man right in our backyard." "This isn't your backyard. This is Mr. Henderson's property." Patricia waved her hand dismissively. "That senile old man doesn't know what's good for him or this community. I've been trying to get him to sell for years so we can expand our golf course. And here you are, validating his stubborn refusal by treating his land like some kind of hippie commune." Something in her tone, when she called Mr. Henderson senile, made my blood boil. He was one of the sharpest, kindest men I'd ever met. "I think you should leave," I said quietly. "I'll leave when you leave." Patricia shot back. "I'm calling the sheriff, and I'm documenting this." She pulled out her phone and started taking pictures of my campsite. "We'll see how you like explaining yourself to law enforcement." "Go ahead," I said. "I have written permission." I didn't actually. It had been a handshake deal, but I knew Mr. Henderson would back me up. Patricia spent the next 10 minutes on her phone, presumably calling anyone who would listen about the dangerous transit on the property next to her precious HOA. She finally left, but not before promising me that this wasn't over. I sat back down, my peaceful morning thoroughly ruined, and looked out over the property. It really was beautiful. 50 acres of rolling hills, with a creek running through it, stand of oak and pine trees, and views that went on forever. Mr. Henderson had mentioned more than once that he was thinking about selling, that maintaining it was getting to be too much for him. An idea started forming in my mind. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in Mr. Henderson's living room, a cup of his wife's famous lemonade in my hand. "You want to buy the property?" His weathered face creased into a smile. "Marcus, I'd be thrilled to sell it to you. I've been worried it would end up in the hands of that Whitmore woman and her HOA vultures. They've been circling like buzzards for years." "How much are you asking?" I asked, though honestly, after selling my company, the price wasn't really a concern. He named a figure that was more than fair. We shook hands right there, and he promised to have his lawyer draw up the papers within the week. "What are you planning to do with it?" he asked, his eyes twinkling. I grinned. "I'm going to build a ranch." A working ranch with horses, maybe some cattle. A place where I can live and also teach kids about animals and nature. Maybe host camping groups, outdoor education programs. I wanted to be alive with activity. Mr. Henderson laughed so hard he had to wipe his eyes. Oh, Patricia is going to lose her mind. The HOA has strict noise ordinances, you know. They barely tolerate lawn mowers after 8 a.m. I know, I said, my grin widening. The property transfer went through in less than a month. I hired a local architect who specialized in ranch design, and we planned everything carefully. The main house would be set back from the HOA boundary, but still visible from some of their premium lots. The stables would be even more prominent. I made sure everything was legal, permitted, and completely by the book. Patricia showed up the day the construction crew arrived. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded, marching onto MY property this time. "I'm building a house," I said calmly, "on my land." Her face went through several interesting color changes. "Your land? What are you talking about?" "I bought the property from Mr. Henderson. It's mine now, and I'm building a ranch." "A ranch?" Her voice could have shattered glass. "You can't build a ranch here. This is a residential area. This isn't part of your HOA. I reminded her, I can build whatever I want, as long as it meets county regulations, which it does. I have all the permits. Patricia's hands were shaking. This is unacceptable. A ranch means animals, noise, smells. This will destroy our property values. Should have been nicer to the vagrant, I said pleasantly. The realization dawned on her face like a slow-motion car crash. You did this because you were rude? Because you called a decorated veteran senile? Because you've been harassing a good man to sell his land for years? I shrugged. Maybe a little bit of all of that, but mostly I just really wanted a ranch. The construction took 6 months. During that time, Patricia tried everything. She filed complaints with the county, all dismissed. She tried to get emergency HOA meetings to somehow extend their jurisdiction, laughed out of every legal office she visited. She even started a petition, which got exactly 12 signatures, mostly from people who didn't actually read it. Meanwhile, I worked with a local rescue organization to bring in horses. I hired ranch hands, including 3 local teenagers who were thrilled to have after-school jobs. I built a beautiful guest lodge for the outdoor education programs I was planning. The day I moved into the main house, I invited Mr. Henderson and about 50 other people for a barbecue. The smoke from our grills drifted lazily over toward Ridgeview Estates. I like to think Patricia could smell it. The ranch opened officially in early spring. Henderson Ridge Ranch. I called it in honor of the man who'd given me my first shot at peace and quiet. Even if that peace had been interrupted, we started with weekend camping programs for kids, horseback riding lessons, and trail rides. The property was perfect for it. Challenging enough to be interesting, beautiful enough to take your breath away. Word spread fast, and soon we were booked solid for months. Patricia, of course, complained about the noise, the laughter at children, the sound of horses whinnying, the occasional bark from my ranch dogs. She filed noise complaints weekly. Every single one was dismissed. We operated well within legal sound levels and only during reasonable hours. The county inspector who came out actually ended up booking his daughter's birthday party at the ranch. The real turning point came about a year after we opened. Patricia's grandson, Ethan, was 13 and going through what his parents apparently called a difficult phase. He'd been caught vandalizing property, skipping school, running with a bad crowd. His mother, Patricia's daughter, called me in desperation. "I heard about your program," she said. "The one where troubled kids can come work with the horses. Would you consider taking Ethan?" I knew exactly who she was. I also knew that holding grudges against kids for their grandmother's behavior was pretty much the definition of petty. "Bring him by tomorrow," I said. Ethan showed up with a chip on his shoulder the size of Montana and an attitude that could have curdled milk. He lasted about 10 minutes before one of my horses, a gentle giant named Sundance, completely ignored his tough guy routine and nuzzled him looking for treats. Something in the kid broke open. He spent the next 3 hours learning to groom Sundance, asking a million questions, and smiling for what his mother later told me was the first time in months. He came back every day after school. Within a month, he was one of my best junior volunteers. Within 6 months, he was talking about becoming a veterinarian. Patricia came to pick him up one evening. I was in the stable with Ethan, teaching him how to check a horse's hooves for stones. She stood in the doorway, watching us in silence for a long moment. "Thank you," she finally said quietly, "for helping him." I looked up, surprised. Patricia's face had lost that perpetual pinch of disapproval. She looked tired and grateful, and maybe even a little embarrassed. "He's a good kid," I said simply. "He just needed to find something to care about." Patricia nodded slowly. "I was wrong about you. About all of this." She gestured vaguely at the ranch. "This place has been good for the community. Even our property values went up. Turns out people like living near a ranch." I couldn't help but smile. Who would have thought? She actually laughed, a real laugh, not that car-starting sound. "I'm sorry for how I treated you, for calling you what I called you. Vagrant. I offered." She winced. "I wasn't at my best." "None of us are all the time," I said. "But we can do better." Patricia left with Ethan, and I watched them walk to her car, the kid chattering excitedly about everything he'd learned. Before she got in, Patricia turned back and gave me a small wave. I waved back. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's building something so good, so full of life and purpose, that it transforms everything around it, including the people who try to tear you down. And sometimes the best response to someone calling you a vagrant is to become their neighbor, a neighbor with a ranch,